and his first 2 years as head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, he went 4-28. And so, some players, they're good players, they can't be coaches. And he went into TV for a while, and he came back and he coached Edmonton and then Hamilton, and he was hugely successful. And I once asked him about it, and he's like, I had no idea. Like with 2020 hindsight, I had no idea. And I wouldn't say that Glenn Gulletson had no idea, but when I see a guy come back to a head coaching job, 5-6 years after, 7 years after it happened, I think of a guy like Ron Lancaster. What did you know? What do you realize you didn't know then that you do know now? What has your next experience taught you? And the thing about Lancaster is he just coached with two of the best players in the NHL. And those are two players that have a big say in what happens. And the coach has to be the boss, and the coach has to lay down the law. But it doesn't mean you can't learn from how to make it work with two of the best players in the league. And the other thing, too, is the Dallas team that Gulletson coached years ago isn't the under control, good ownership model that they have now. I think like Pierre DeBoer is a heck of a coach, but it's clear he has an expiration, and the expiration came there, and this team needed a new voice. And I thought it was really smart that they found a spot for Neil Graham on the bench, because otherwise they would have lost him. And I'm curious to see how this goes over the next few years, because this isn't the last time the Stars are going to be asked.
That line I heard, I believe it was someone in baseball, it said, the more time I spend around the game, the more I realize how little I know about it.
I like that with broadcasting.
Yes. Yeah, that's it though. Everything else you've got down to a T.
Everything else I've got figured out. No problem. No problem.
Okay, the Minnesota Wild. The shackles are off. Out from under the LTIR weight. There was some depth signings they've made so far. Cal Peterson for some depth in goal. There was the trade that brought them Vladimir Tarasenko. But the big focus for them internally, Kirill Kaprizov and Marco Rossi. Where do things stand there?
So, on Kaprizov, Bill Guerin has always maintained a confidence, and I wouldn't expect anything less. Guerin is always confident outwardly, and I wouldn't expect there to be any difference. I'm really curious to see when this gets done, what the number is going to be, because I remember we talked earlier this year about how there were people that felt that Kaprizov would go for the biggest number in the league, like even potentially more than a McDavid. And not necessarily, Kaprizov's a hell of a player. I don't know that anybody should be paid more than Connor McDavid, but everybody's situation is their own. And we kind of talked about it with Alex Tuch in the Buffalo segment, right? That your situation in Buffalo for Tuch drives up his value. Kaprizov's situation in Minnesota drives up his value. So we're all curious to see this number, although again, Guerin and the owner there, Craig Leopold, have said they will pay it. But it's one of those things, like some of these other ones, with each day it doesn't get done. People are like, okay, let's get this done here. Rossi, there's no arbitration for Rossi. He's not eligible. There's lots of time here. The one thing is that as we record this podcast, and again, I always live in fear of this, I say this and then something gets announced, but they didn't appear close on a contract. It's been reported that Rossi's ask was around Boldy, 7x7. He's a 60-point center. But the Wild don't see it the same way. Because of what happened to Rossi in the playoffs where he got moved down the lineup, his representation doesn't want to go short term, because if that happens again, it could really hurt his earning potential. So right now they're a little bit stuck, right? I think when the season starts next year, Rossi will be put in position to score again. It benefits the Wild and it benefits the player. Whatever they agree to contract-wise, assuming he stays there and he's not traded, it doesn't make sense for the Wild to bury Rossi because they need him to win. And also, you don't want to bury him because eventually, if you're not going to keep him, you want to move him. So I could see a situation where he comes back, they figure out something, and the recognition and understanding is they're there to shine him up. I don't think a trade was ever really close. I don't think the Wild got anything close to what they were looking for. And I think Bill Guerin is honest when he says, I'm not making my team worse. I'm either getting a player that helps me right away or something I know that will get me a player right away. To me, the most interesting thing about Rossi is that this is a league that is crying for centers. Look at all of the teams who are looking for 2Cs. And Rossi, in theory, can play that role. And I think the reason is, who was Florida's 2C? It's Sam Bennett. So whenever somebody wins the Stanley Cup, everybody wants a 2C like that guy. And he just won the Conn Smythe Trophy as the MVP of the final. So I just think that the other thing that Rossi's been hurt by is, at least in the trade market, is the whole Sam Bennett syndrome. That's what we want our 2C to look like. So it's hurt Rossi's value and Minnesota's chances. A couple of things I do like for Minnesota. I like some enthusiasm of the new younger players. Boldy obviously is a heck of a player, but I'm excited to see Yurov next year, who came over from Russia, and Buim in the playoffs. He was a bit of a wild man all over the ice as he tried to figure out the differences between the NCAA and the NHL. But you can see the energy and the enthusiasm. And I could see why the Wild are excited about this guy. So, and Tarasenko too, he was a bad fit in Detroit. He's playing for a contract. He'll be motivated. So, those are the things I like about Minnesota. I recognize the nervousness about Kaprizov among the fan base. And I'm wondering if at the end of the day, and we'll see how this goes, it's always better to solve your solution internally than try to trade it, is if Rossi and the Wild try to find a middle ground here and say, look, we need you to do what we need to become a better team, and in return, we'll make sure we shine you up, whether it's with us or with somebody else. That may be the best solution for everybody.
And remember, too, last year when Tarasenko went to Florida at the deadline, he was the one that was with Lundell and Luostarinen on that line for the Panthers when they won their first Stanley Cup in 24.
Oh, right, that's right.
Paul Maurice spoke glowingly of the impact he had on those two players. And then, of course, they end up having Marchand on their wing this time around. But
those guys should get 5% of everybody's contract.
Curious to see how the Wild go about deploying him. You're right. All right. The Nashville Predators, Elliot, they were
their agents
July
are probably
1st.
Calling right now. 5%.
Yes, yeah, that's good. The Predators were the July 1st darlings a year ago, and the Mike Feudal line, one of the worst things you can be told as a GM is that you won the offseason, but a little quieter this time around. Bring in Haig and Perbix on their back end. It's interesting. Listen to Jason Bukala. He pointed to the fact that Nashville took Brady Martin in the draft this year with their first pick. He kind of took that as a sign as Barry Trotz wanting that team to be known as being relentless to play against again. That was their hallmark when first coming into the league as a franchise.